Greetings dear children. In this video, we will be learning the poem I Remember written by Thomas Hood. Let's look at a few points about the author. Thomas Hood was an English poet born in London. He was an English poet, a journalist, a humorist, and also notable as a writer of comic verse. I Remember is a poem dedicated to the nostalgic embrace of the memory of childhood. Thomas Hood wrote the poem I Remember in the year 1844, a year before his death in 1845. The poet feels that the time passes by, leaving only memories behind. Let's begin. I remember the house where I was born, a little window where the sun came peeping in at morn. He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day. But now I often wish the night had borne my breath away. In this stanza, the poet reminisces his childhood days spent in the house in which he was born and grew up. He remembers a little window in the house through which sunlight used to peep in. He would see sunrise and sunset at the same time every day. He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day. The sun rose at the same time, never too early, and as a child he never felt the day longer. As a child he was busy with the daily activities, never felt the day longer. Sun is personified. The literary term used here is personification. And what does the sun symbolize? Sun symbolizes perfect balance. Nature provided perfect balance. At the end of the stanza, the poet wishes the night had borne my breath away. The poet laments that the night should have ended his life by taking his breath, so that the blissful childhood would never end and he would not have to face the harsh realities of the present day life. This shows that the poet believed that his childhood was better than adulthood. I remember the roses red and white, the violets and the lily cups, those flowers made of light. These lines mean the flowers, like his childhood, were colorful and bright, but as fragile and likely to fade or break. At present, he can imagine the flowers, that they are not real, and merely a flint of light representing to his present depressed state. The lilacs where the robin built. The presence of robin's nest in it stands for the security and comfort of his childhood days. The poet misses the security and comfort now. He misses the time when he had the opportunity to stop and smell the flowers. That means appreciate the simple joys of life. And where my brother set the laburnum on his birthday, the tree is living yet. He then remembers that the laburnum tree that his brother had planted on one of his birthdays. The tree is living yet. That means the presence of the tree planted by his brother years ago acts as a reminder to the poet of his buried past and stirs up more nostalgic memories. The exclamation mark compounds Hood's sense of excitement. He sees it as a living remnant of the past which he has lost. What does this stanza highlight? It highlights how children have the simplicity to enjoy the little joys of life in nature. So what does he remember in this stanza? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the things he remembers. roses, red and white, then violets, the lily cups, lilacs where a robin built its nest, and the Lebanon tree. I remember where I was used to swing and thought the air must rush as fresh to swallows on the wing. My spirit flew in feathers then, that is so heavy, and summer pools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. In this stanza, the poet talks about the carefree life of childhood. He recollects the swing from his childhood, which would lift both him and his spirits up. While enjoying the breeze he could experience when he was on the swing, he wondered if the swallows felt the same rush of air while flying. The poetic device used is simile as fresh to swallows on the wing. He thinks that as a child he was free from the burdens of adult life. That's the reason he felt light. But now we can see his spirits are so heavy. Thomas Hood evokes the contrast between the lightness of youth and the heavy nature of the present in which now he is struck, heightens his grief at the loss of his childhood. My spirit flew, shift back to the depressive present, which is evident through the past flew. Flew sets this spirit of childhood joviality strictly in the past. The sense of freedom he once had has now ended. What did he say further? Summer pools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. The dip in the summer pools that cooled him as a child can barely calm the heat on his brows. Here it is. The pools that would cool him in his childhood cannot soothe his aching adult heart now. This shows, what does it show? This shows the regret and sorrows one feels as life moves on. So once again, a contrast is drawn in this stanza between the innocent abandon of childhood and the worry-ridden life as an adult. So why is the bird swallow referred to here? Because these are the birds commonly found flying, dotting in the sky. And you can see the image of the bird, pointed wings and tail with the 2 points. I remember the fir trees dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. It was a childish ignorance. But now it's little joy to know I am farther off from heaven than when I was a boy. In the last stanza, the poet talks about how, as a child, he used to think that the top of the tall fir tree could almost touch the skies, means heaven. Now, as an adult, he knows better. He knows the fact, but there is little joy in knowing that the heaven is farther away from what he had imagined it to be as a child. So the poet says, ignorance is bliss. That's the reason children are blissful. They are protected from a lot of harsh realities of life. So as a child, the poet used to think that the top of the fir tree could almost touch the sky. And he tells that the joy, it's little joy. What does it mean? The joy is the belief that heaven was in the reach of the top branches of the fir trees, and ignorance being bliss. The last three lines, now it's little joy to know I'm farther off from heaven than when I was a boy, suggest that the poet has lost his youthful joy and optimism. And it refers that as a person grows old, he realizes the folly of youth and things that brought him joy are still there, but they no longer give him joy as they used to in his childhood. Spirituality and inner peace, that is a heaven which appeared close and attainable in the childhood, no longer seems to be attainable. He realized it as he has grown. As he has gained experience, he realized the fact. This realization, which he has gained through his experience in his life, brings no joy. Hence, he laments the loss of his childhood. Let's look at the form and structure of the poem. I Remember is a 32-lined poem divided into 4 equal stanzas of 8 lines. An 8-line stanza is called an octave. And the remaining literary devices I have mentioned here with an example. Assonance, simile, personification, anaphora, metaphor, enjambment, diction, consonants and alliteration. Let's look at the theme. The first one is Saudada, second one childhood happiness, and the third theme is childhood versus adulthood. Setting. The poem is set in the memory of the poet. The poet goes down memory lane to bring back reminiscences from his childhood. The nature forms an important component of this setting. Title. The title I Remember is a refrain which is repeated at the head of every stanza in the poem, making the pronoun I the focal point and the verb to remember, which is used to show that the speaker is reminiscing about his childhood days and wants to accentuate his longing for the same. Thank you, children.